So the Crucible mechanic is kind of rough from a UX perspective, but in terms of how much power you can get from these passive trees, it's OP. Probably some of the biggest power creep we've seen in a long time. Now there are some build archetypes that are able to abuse it way harder than others, but almost all builds can take advantage of at least something really strong. Here are some examples of a few of the cute interactions between Crucible trees and certain mechanics. Some items have pretty insane percent scaling on them to make their numbers more competitive. For example, Emperor's Vigilance, pretty much the best in slot for crit shield skills, at least damage wise. Its base stats are pretty low, so it gets 1000% increased armor and energy shield. That's a 10 times multiplier. Now if you were to say, add a local flat 40 ES roll from the Crucible tree, times 10, that's an extra 400 ES on the item. That's more than doubling its ES. That means for shield skills, you're getting like over 11% base crit and like 300 crit multi just from Seething Fury. Not to mention you can also get a Phantasmal Gem and some extra quality to make it insane. I think you can also get like 150 flat armor, which almost doubles the flat damage you would get from the shield. But I'm pretty sure that takes the same slot as the ES on the Crucible tree, so you're gonna have to figure out which one would be better. Another very notable interaction you get is for attribute stacking, both in the traditional way and for Omni. Like the Recombinators from Sentinel League, there are special mods you can get from combining Crucible trees, which I will go over in more depth later, but the relevant ones here are these attribute stacking ones, which is an insane damage boost for these builds. There are also a lot of passives that just straight up give you a lot of attributes, some which give you like 120 of a single stat, with the drawback of gaining no inherent bonuses from the attribute. Now this is a pretty big detriment for like strength and in-stacking builds because they usually get really large life and ES pulls from stacking so much of the attribute. However, that doesn't really apply to Omniscience builds. Since your attributes are all converted to Omni, you have nothing to gain from the inherent bonuses anyway. In addition, there are some really strong passives that require you to have an attribute below 100. You can build around these normally, but you're probably gonna miss out on some gem levels depending on your build. However, Omni is again converting all your attributes anyway, so you don't even need to worry about this drawback. These are just some of the really OP things you can do. I'm sure there are plenty more to discover as the league goes on, but even for the average use case, you can get some pretty strong stuff with very little effort. Here's an 8.5 crit 900 elemental DPS bow I made for like 70 chaos. I just bought a base, threw some essences at it, and put it in the Crucible. It's worth noting that the passives granted by the Crucible tree add local stats to the item, so stuff like flat damage, crit, and attack speed can be really strong. Now initially I didn't get anything good on the tree, but here's where tree merging comes in. I bought another bow with a passive tree that had stuff that was good for my build, the stats and base type don't matter, and then I essentially just grafted the good tree onto my original bow with a Primeval Remnant, which comes from cracking open Igneous Geodes. Now I'm not 100% sure on all the merging mechanics as of right now, so take what I say with a grain of salt, but I'm pretty sure passives will keep their positions when merging. So keep that in mind if you want to replace a certain passive or maybe if you want to keep something specific. Also, I'm not sure if having the passives allocated will increase your chance to keep them, that's what I'm hearing from other people, but I'm doing it anyway just in case. Now in theory, you can keep merging trees until you get something you're happy with, and by doing this you can easily turn an okay item into something very usable in the endgame. And I haven't even mentioned some of the cool build defining ones you can get.